and then I want to get to, well, whatever. So, yeah, she got taken to court twice, and because she'd been working with so many celebrities and whatnot back in the day, and they came to testify saying that their eyes weren't burned and they could still see, and it was very effective, then the court finally had to just be like, okay, you're good, and dismiss all those cases. And the thing that was interesting is because of this, the optometrist and the whole vision doctor medical society banned teaching this technique because it was taking money away from the whole prescribing glasses and contact lenses and stuff like that. And this was in New York, and still to this day, you're not allowed to teach the Bates method, which I thought was interesting.
Still to the day.
Still to this day. And that's why you can't officially get certified in the Bates method, because they don't want to draw any more attention to themselves. Because I was just looking all over the place, and I mean, you can take classes to learn about it, but you don't get any official certification or anything. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
That's interesting.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's kind of like for chiropractors, the medical world tried to get rid of chiropractors because they were just like, well, they're not doing anything and all this kind of stuff. And the amount of people that came forward and said, no, this actually really helps. Finally, they had to give in and be like, okay, well, I guess they can do that. And it's interesting too, because they try to scare everybody. Ironically, in New York again, they have billboards up of saying, you know, my daughter got adjusted and had a stroke and died, and it was because of the chiropractor. So don't ever go to a chiropractor. And it's kind of like dentists or other kinds of fields. You can find good ones and you can find bad ones. I mean, there's chiropractors out there that one guy actually got his license taken away because he was doing mobile adjustments, as in he would have the patients call him and ask them to put the phone up to wherever it hurt, and he would send energy to it to heal it or something. I mean, that's ridiculous. But so he got his license taken away. But there are certain techniques that are a little further out there. There's one called the network technique, where the patient lays down on the table, face down on the table, and the doctor says they can actually see the flow of the spinal fluid inside the spine itself, which is obviously not possible, but it's just odd, because what they do is they see it, and then they say they can see their aura, and then they kind of reach out, and it's like they're grabbing a string and they're like pulling it. They don't even touch the patient, and they just kind of pull it and act like they're trying to realign their aura or energy or whatever. But I mean, ironically, especially down in California, since people are a little different down there, there's a lot of people that are like, yeah, that's awesome, I love it. And I'm like, okay, everybody has their thing that they like. But there are different techniques, like the activator technique is it's just a little clicker, and it's the most studied technique because you can keep a consistent amount of force, because it's a device, and you get adjusted with that, and it feels like nothing's going on. But because it's so specific and it gets right on the bones that stick out on the sides of the vertebra, the transverse processes, it goes right on that and moves it just a little bit. And afterwards, you're just like, wow, I actually do feel kind of good. And that's good for people that just don't like the whole cracking thing, especially in the neck. People get nervous about that. So anyway, enough about chiropractic stuff. So this gentleman was, he was pretty interesting. He was almost blind, but he wrote a book, Brave New World, and he had some really thick glasses, as you can see there. And he worked with Margaret Corbett, and he had such an amazing result that he went on to write another book called The Art of Seeing. And I was impressed, and this actually brought some good that kind of shine the light on the fact that this really works. And this guy, he wrote books for a living, and you have to be able to see if you're writing books. And so it really helped a lot for everybody to get to understand, even though the medical world was trying to stifle this, it helped a lot to have the everyday person realize that, okay, this actually is something that actually works. So that, I mean, personally, just I know it works because I did it myself, but it just kind of reinforces the fact that it does work because you had other people doing it that got good results. My lovely picture here with my glasses, I forgot they were so big. I was like, oh, okay, but I guess that was probably in the 80s, and yeah, I had a lot more hair back then too. But the glasses were definitely something that were a pain, and luckily I don't have to wear them anymore, which is nice. These are the different muscles that we're working on. That's the biggest thing. It's not so when you wear glasses, it's focusing on the lens itself. And sometimes when you have cataracts, it starts to harden the lens. And so when you have these, there's little ciliary muscles, they call them, around the lens, that they contract and relax, and that helps change the thickness of the lens. Can you guys see me or just the slide?
Yeah, we can see you.
Oh, okay. I can't see myself, but that's okay. I'll figure that out later, but this is a nice image here. Anyway, so those little ciliary muscles, they change the thickness of the lens, and that's how it focuses. But when those start to get, when the lens itself starts to lose its elasticity, then it can't focus as well. But also, if you have tightness in any of these muscles, then it's going to change. So the light comes in here. This is the movie screen, for lack of a better word. And it's supposed to land because the light comes in wide like this, and it comes down to a focal point right here. And if you're nearsighted, it comes down and it focuses in front of the movie screen, and then it opens back up again so that when it hits the actual screen that goes to the optic nerve back to the brain, it's not as clear as it should be. So it's really clear right here, but then it goes out and hits this, and it's not as clear. And if you're farsighted, it's just the opposite. It goes out and then it focuses behind the movie screen. And so you still, the wider the image, the light impulses are going in, then the less focused they are. So you want to have that focal point right on the retina. And that's what these muscles do, is they change the shape of the eyeball itself. So say you're nearsighted and it's focusing here, but they change the eyeball so it pulls the movie screen up to where that focal point is, and that's how it works. And so we just have to make sure all those muscles are working together, and there's not one that's too tight or one that's too loose. And that's what all these exercises do. They help work on all those muscles. And this is basically what I was just talking about, the whole processing system. So it comes in, and then it goes to the macula and the retina back here. Optic nerve takes it all the way back to the back of the brain. And I always thought it was interesting, because if the image is up and down here, when it focuses on the retina, it's inverted or upside down. And people always wondered why that was. Well, it's because when it goes back around to the back of the brain flips it right side up again. And they did an experiment at a wedding once. And Jelte, I may have told you this story, but they had funny glasses that had mirrors on them, and the bride and the groom wore those glasses. I don't know why they volunteered to do that, but they did. And it changed their vision, so they weren't focused straight ahead. They were focused at a 45-degree angle. And for the first 10 or 15 minutes or so, they would be looking at something straight ahead, but it looked like it was over here. So they were grabbing over here, and they couldn't grab it because that's not where it was. But then after about 15 minutes, their brain adjusted. So then, even though their vision was directed 45 degrees away, their brain adjusted so they could pick things up no problem, because they just had realized the difference. And then when they took the glasses off, same thing happened. They would be grabbing off to the side when the object was straight ahead. But after about 15 minutes, then their brain adjusted, their eyes adjusted, and they would focus on exactly what's going on. So it just points out the fact that it's not just an eye thing, it's a brain thing as well, which I thought was interesting. And this is what I was just talking about before. On the left, you can see normal vision. It's focused right on the retina. Farsighted, it's focused behind the retina. And then nearsighted, like Simon, it's focused in the front of the retina. So we have to change the shape of the eyeball to get that where it's focusing better.
Okay. So you would train the muscles in your eyes.
That's what we're working on. Yeah.
Okay, that's clear.
Because if you're focused just at a computer screen, then the muscles stay contracted to be able to focus on that, but they won't relax when you look far away. They still are trained, basically like in the mirror example, they're trained to just look straight or up close. And so when you look far away, it's blurrier because the retina is still not in the appropriate position. It is for looking up close, but when you look far away, it's not adjusting the shape of the eyeball because those muscles are so trained. It's kind of like a muscle memory kind of thing. They think they're just supposed to look up close. So when you try to look somewhere else, it won't change because it thinks it's supposed to be in the wrong position.
And it also might be a brain problem, right? Like it's
It could be a brain problem. I also wrote a book about concussions, and whenever you have issues in the brain, then it's going to process the impulses to the brain incorrectly, and so that's when you can cause vision issues. That's also why when you have migraine headaches, your vision can get blurry or even go black on one side or the other. Sometimes it comes down from the top, and that's just because your brain isn't processing things the way it's supposed to. And ironically, a lot of times I used to get those too. For me, I would feel numbness in my hand, and I was like, okay, that means I'm about to get a headache, and then it would go away, and then about 10 minutes later, the headache would hit me. And it's all a miscommunication with the brain and the body and the outside world. So the brain is very important. That's why the omega-3, the fish oils, are really good to make sure your neurology is working at its optimal levels.
okay. That's clear. Okay.
Okay. Is that a pun? It's clear vision.
Well, how long would you recommend to do the exercises, and what exercises are the best, or are there no best?
Well, the exercises in general are good. It just depends on your specific challenge. So basically, this is the relaxation, the deep breathing, and the diaphragmatic or belly breathing. So when you breathe in through the nose, your belly comes out. Then when you exhale through the mouth. And that's one of the breathing techniques they use in meditation a lot too. And that just helps you relax, because if you're trying to see, if you're straining and squinting, that is not how the body works. You need to relax. And the biggest thing, and it's just human nature, if you can see up close but you can't see far away, you want to squint, thinking that's going to help you see better, but it actually stresses out the muscles and it's not going to let you see better. So you're just supposed to blink, relax, and just accept what you can see. And then over time, your brain will realize, okay, we can just look this way, we can look down that way. And if we look further away, even though it might not be crystal clear at first, the more you practice, the more the muscles adjust, and then you can see clearer further away.
Okay, that's clear. Okay.
And this is another one of the more interesting exercises. You do the same breathing, but then when you're breathing in, you cup your hands in your lap, and then when you breathe out, you flatten them. And that's another brain-body connection sort of thing, because you can just slightly, but you can almost feel some movement in the eyeball itself. And personally, I think it's because that's what you're focusing on. That's what you're thinking about. And so that actually is what helps you develop that better brain-eye connection.
Okay. And how long would you recommend to do this every day?
I would do that every day, just until you're relaxed. And like with the palming, if you have your eyes closed, you don't see any flashy lights. It's just nice and black, and that means that you're finally relaxed. So sometimes it could be a couple minutes, but if you're having a really stressful day, been staring at the computer all day, it might take 5 to 10 minutes doing this. And then the yawning we talked about as well. When you yawn, it gets more oxygen up to the brain, and obviously the brain's really important. So we get more oxygen up to the brain and stretch the muscles in the neck and in the jaw as well. Everything that's going to help relax is really important. And one of the things, the third book that I wrote about vision talks about, when you get your neck adjusted, it actually helps increase circulation to the brain, because the optic nerve is actually inside the brain, or inside the skull itself. So you can't adjust that one. But adjusting down here in the first and second bones in the neck, the cervical vertebra, helps increase circulation of the brain. And once again, just like yawning, more oxygen is always good. And then we have movement. So we know the two foundations are relaxation and movement. And this is all about the oppositional movement. So you move one way, but it looks like everything else is moving the other way. And this just helps your brain recognize that, instead of just kind of moving around and just not really thinking about it. And one of my favorite things is to think about, okay, you're walking, are you walking forward, or is the ground going backwards? and you think about like the rotation of the earth and all that weird kind of stuff, and you're like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't think about that. Or like if you're in a boat and you're sitting in a boat, you're going forward, but the water's going backwards. Well, how do you know that you're not just sitting there and the water's going and you're just sitting still? Just some interesting matrix kind of stuff to think about. But yeah, you can do this just the way the diagram explains, going up on your foot, lifting up your heel on one side and then alternating sides, swinging the arm, and just getting the movement going nice and relaxed, and then holding the thumb out while you're doing it as well helps really focus on that oppositional movement. And then you can even do it with the eyes closed, and that helps get the brain's proprioception, or the awareness of it, of the body in space. It also helps to stimulate that. Is that clear?
That's clear. That's clear.
Okay. And then this is the cross crawl, stimulates both hemispheres of the brain, because one of the biggest things personally is this is just pointing out that vision, I think personally, is more of a brain thing than it is an eye thing. And I mean, obviously, unless you have some sort of physical damage to the eye, because it helps your brain. When you stimulate both hemispheres of the brain, it helps it connect to each other and communicate with each other better. Both sides we're talking about. And we do exercises like this all the time in the office. If you want to, say you have shoulder issues, we have you stand up, and then when you're looking straight ahead, but you swing your arms alternating sides. And so that helps to stimulate the brain and helps you to heal faster. And this is another thing for balance. You can do this with your eyes closed, which is a challenge, but it definitely helps that brain connection as far as the brain body connection.
How to do that when you're standing up and then
you're standing up, you bring, say you bring your left knee up, and then you bring your right knee down. Yeah.
Oh, I thought you meant another one you did in office.
Oh, the shoulder exercise?
Yeah, that one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just, you have your arms down at your side, you don't bend your elbows, and you have some weight in your hands like dumbbells. And so when you have the dumbbells in there, it kind of opens up the shoulder joint a little bit. And then you just swing the arms alternating sides just like that. So the weight opens up the joint, and the motion helps increase circulation to the joint. I used to do this for the knees. So when you're sitting, it's like you're sitting on a counter when you're a kid, and you just swing your legs just a little bit and have weight on your ankles, and that opens up the knee joint. The motion helps increase circulation. And then if you put a hot pack on your knees, that actually helps increase circulation even more. I tore my meniscus years ago playing football. So anytime, and that's kind of like the cushion on top of the ligaments in the knee. And so when I would walk around the table as a chiropractor, my left knee would just kill me. I was like, I'm not going to be able to do this. My knee hurts too bad. I did these exercises, and I'm kind of a more is better kind of thing. So we tell patients to use like 10 pounds, but I was in a rush and really wanted to speed this whole process up. So I had 35 pounds on my left ankle, Velcro strapped on there, and it would look kind of ridiculous, and was swinging my knees. And you don't swing them too much. If you swing them too much, it jams the knee joint. So you just want to dangle them just like a little kid, just a little bit. And did that with the hot packs on there, and totally healed my meniscus in 2 weeks. So people are like, oh, I have to have surgery. I'm like, well, let's try this first. And so many, I mean, you do get to a certain point sometimes when the knee is so degenerated, it's not going to heal. But this was something that worked really well for me. It doesn't help with vision, but it just was another exercise that we do. Then we have the sunning. This is one of the main things that I did that helped my vision. And once again, keep your eyes closed. And you look up at the sun. Unless you're light sensitive, some certain conditions can make you light sensitive, and you can go towards the sky instead of the sun. So I have your sun at the back. But when you do the sunning, you have the hands in front of your face, do the up and down, side to side with the fingers open. It creates that strobe light effect that stimulates the specialized cells in the eye, the rods and the cones. And you have to make sure once you do this, you have to sit down and do the palming, which is next, because that looking up at the sun and doing that stimulates, like I said, it really stimulates the eyes. So then when you do the palming, you're going to see flashy lights and different colors because you've been looking up at the sun with your eyes closed once again. And then just to make sure. And then you have those eyes open or closed, I should say. But the elbows supported is one of the trickiest things, because you're not going to really, I mean, there were stories of people like stacking books up on the sides of the chair and pillows and that kind of stuff. But it's just easier to lean forward to put your elbows on a table and cross your hands like that. And the warmth of your hands, you can even warm your hands up a little bit and then put them across, and the warmth helps relax the muscles. And then just do the deep breathing while you're doing this for, well, it depends. I mean, if you're, looking up at the sun for 5-10 minutes and then you sit down, it might take 15 to 20 minutes for your eyes to finally calm down. And that's helping to replenish what they call the visual purple, which is a pigment inside of the eye. And that helps to regenerate and heal those specialized cells that you've overstimulated with looking up at the sun. And then you calm them down. It's kind of like when you're at the gym, you flex the muscle and then you relax the muscle. So you're flexing looking at the sun, and then you're relaxing when you're doing the palming. So that helps work those muscles as well, because they're tiny little muscles, but a muscle is a muscle. So it's important to make sure they're healthy and working properly. This is an interesting, you can do the circles and with your eyes, just kind of go clockwise, counterclockwise. And that's trying to see where you have any little glitch where it's harder to move that the eye past a certain point. And so if it's like you're up here and you can just kind of detect that it's a little harder to move smoothly around the circle, then you just keep doing that. And that helps to make sure it's going to strengthen whatever muscle is weak or tight that is not allowing smooth movement of that. And this is an interesting study they did in I think it was the CIA. If you are interrogating someone and you are watching them, like on the upper right there, if they look up and to the right, even though it's really quickly, but if you notice that means that they're making up a story in their head. But if they're looking up and to your left, that means that they're actually remembering something. So just a quick little, in case you're interrogating anybody and they look up and to the right, you'll know they're lying. I just thought that was interesting. This is another one for the movement. You start at the center, you track the shape with your nose and your eyes at the same time, and then you get to a point where you just do it with your eyes. And doing this is, very similar to doing the counterclockwise and the clockwise. It just kind of is a way to kind of change it up a little bit and make sure that you're getting that smooth movement that you need. And the biggest thing is, we talked about last time, is imagining it like a black dot, like a period, and don't look at the whole image, just look at one specific point. And if you really focus on it, then you'll start to see that particular point darker than the rest of it. And like I also mentioned last time, you can look at the period off to the side of the image you're looking at, and then gradually move that dot closer. And then when it starts to get blurrier, that just means you have to keep working on that until it gets to a point, because the brain wants to look at the whole image, but you have to train your brain to just be like, no, we're just going to focus on one little spot. And that is something that really helps, especially with the eye chart, because you don't just want to see the big E and then you try to look down at the little letters. It's like you just need to focus on a certain part of the letter and then kind of trace it around. And then each little individual part of the letter will get darker until finally the whole letter is darker.
Mm-hmm.
And this works on the convergence of the eyes to make sure that they're focusing the way they're supposed to. I love this one. It's very interesting to me, and it's fun. I have my little string here. It's all knotted up, but you can hold this. It doesn't have to be colored beads. It just makes it more fun if it's colored, so you know exactly which bead you're looking at. But it is something that they check when you go to the optometrist, or even just for a doctor's appointment. They call it the cardinal fields of gaze. So that's when they hold the pen up and they're like, track the pen just with your eyes, don't move your head. And then they bring it in towards your nose. And that's just making sure that that optic nerve that's going to the eyes is functioning properly, and that the muscles of the eye are moving properly. Because sometimes people will try to focus when it's right up by their nose and say one eye kind of drifts off to the side. Well, that means that the muscle that control that movement are too tight and it's pulling it the other direction. So for us to accommodate for the medical doctors, they say, okay, well, you need glasses to correct that. But for us, we're like, okay, we realize that this muscle's too tight, so we need to make sure that we do the circles, the clockwise, the counterclockwise, to make sure that that muscle is going to start to relax properly and function properly. Actually, the doctor that I'm working with now, he's an Ironman. I think he's been in the Ironman marathon, swimming, biking, and all that stuff. I think he's done it 11 times. So he's very much in shape. But one day he woke up and one of his eyes was looking towards his nose, and he couldn't get it was stuck because that muscle was so tight, it was stuck. And so I sent him a copy of my book, and within a month, his eyes had normalized. It was interesting because we would do talks like this, and he would have to turn his head so you couldn't tell his eye was weird on the one side, so that it made him look like he was kind of being suspicious. But that was the only eye that worked correctly, because if you looked there and the other one was going in, it would be very distracting. But it was nice that he fixed that in a month. So it definitely works. And obviously for this one, if you focus on the closest bead, it looks like a V. You pick a bead in the middle, and then it looks like an X, and then you pick one in further distance, and then it looks like an A without the little cross part, or a TP, whatever you want to call it. And like I said before, when you get really good at training your eyes, you can make the different shapes occur wherever you want along the pattern. So you could look at the closest one, and instead of looking like a V, it could look like an X. It could look like the number 3 there, the A. It's just all about training the muscles of the eye to do what you want them to. And once again, getting that brain-eye connection.
Mm-hmm.
So there's the vision test. And like I said, we do not focus on the entire letter. We just focus on one part, and then shift to another part, and then another part, and just keep doing that. And so that when you get down towards the bottom, you're not straining to see the lower letters. You're making sure you're doing your deep breathing, you're blinking to create that contact lens of tears across the eye. And then you just read all the way across, just one little section of letter at a time. Because if you look at the E, altogether, you're like, oh, okay, there's the E. But then you go right down to the bottom line, then it's like, oh, wait, what is that? And so that's the important thing, is to focus on different parts of the letters. And that might be me. But it's not just inevitable that you're getting older, so you're just going to not be able to see. It's because we don't take care of ourselves, and we eat a bunch of bad stuff, and such a high rate of diabetes now, and it's just kind of ridiculous, because we eat all kinds of good, tasty foods, but they're not good for us. And then the diabetes people don't realize, when they're looking, they call it an otoscope, when they're looking into your eye with a little light, that you can actually see your retina in the back, which is pretty fascinating. And that little lighter spot towards the back, that's actually where the optic nerve comes in. But all these little minuscule blood vessels, you can have little aneurysms or a rupture of those tiny little things, and you'll see little red spots throughout there. And that indicates that you have a blood sugar issue. And that is something that's very common in diabetes. They have vision issues.